host, Sophia, and my guest today is Rachelle Luv Raku. Now, she is an embodiment coach and facilitator who loves walking women home to themselves and to live a life full of pleasure. Welcome.
Thank you for having me, Sophia. It is an honor to be here, especially with the essence of what you're bringing to the world of inviting women to live a life that actually they can travel and do all the things and travel inward and all around the world, right? Inspire them to actually take the actions that light us up because we get to live from that space.
And that's one of the reasons I really wanted you on because I know that you talk a lot about pleasure and pleasure. People can derive pleasure in many, many different ways, but they just sometimes forget how and that they should. So, before we even get into all that, let's learn a little bit more about you and how you got to this place of
Yeah. So
feeling alone.
I love this question. I was like, it makes me tick because I'm a mum of five and I was a podiatrist originally, and I lived a life in a pretty normal upbringing, right? And I was very successful as a podiatrist, as a mum, and in my relationship, my relationship was starting to break down, and it was becoming very angry and violent, and so I was in that place, but I still had to be the mum. I still had to work in my field. I still had to do all the things. So I was very successful at what I was doing, but I was finding myself like in the holding of everything
Mm,
that my life, I needed to kind of numb to it to be able to keep being in all of the things that from the surface, my life looked amazing. But what I felt inside was actually nothing. And that was healthier and safer for me to feel than to feel the pain and the hurt of what was actually happening with a relationship that was fracturing and with all of the things of holding everybody and everything and not holding myself. And so I had this epiphany moment where I was looking through my phone, the photos in my phone, and I was scrolling, and I had to get my daughter needed a photo for an assignment that we went to the zoo, and she wanted this photo of a wombat. And so I was scrolling through my phone and I was like struck by how much joy and how much adventure and how much fun was in these photos. And I don't remember feeling any of that.
oh,
And
wow.
so it was a coping mechanism. It was a beautiful coping mechanism. Our female bodies, our brains, we're amazing at doing what needs to be done to get to the next level. But unfortunately, in the blocking out of all of the pain that was also there and not looking at that meant that I also had to block out all of the joy. And so it was this huge moment that was a catalyst into getting into personal development work. I had amazing mentor, Preston Smiles and Alexi Panos, and I work with them in the bridge method, like this amazing somatics body work workshop that really shifted everything for me. Because I had a moment where I was like, oh, maybe I'm a really smart woman. I get everybody to the next day. Like we're doing all the things. Maybe I don't have the skills I need to get out of this funk place. And that moment of grace changed everything for me.
Now, that what you said, I just want to say it again. Maybe I didn't have the skills to get to where I needed to be because so many women think that, well, there must be something wrong with me, or maybe I am broken, or maybe I just
Yeah.
can't do this. When maybe there's just a skill gap and you need somebody else to help you bridge that gap, which, of course, I love the name bridge because they're bridging the gap.
Yeah, we've become the bridge. And I think like it's that big, Sophia, it's that grace, because normally what would happen is when I was feeling bad, I would then shame myself about feeling bad, and I would go down, like I say to my friends, if you need somebody in a shame Olympics relay, like call me. Like I am so good at that downward spiral of like, hey, I'm not good enough, I'm broken. That's my chestnut I go back to. Like there's something about me innate and wrong that is only my broken thing. And the fact is I'm not special. Everybody has that piece. Everybody has a piece of that in them.
Okay,
And
so
so it
wait,
was that
are you
moment.
gonna be are you the anchor runner or are you the first one? On
Yeah,
that
exactly. I feel like I'd be the last one, the strong one at the end who really takes it up. Because I could stress that whole time, about how I wasn't good enough and compare. I could compare. And it's that. I said that part at the end of like having grace with myself because that was the main thing. Because normally what happened is I would feel like my life was too much, or it was, there was all of the negative feelings that came. And so I numbed out, but also I would make myself bad or wrong for that. And instead, I just went, wait, hold on. Like, there is so many different things I do in my world where I find solutions. Like, maybe I just don't know the solution of how to get out of here rather than me, anything being wrong or broken about me. And we just get to go and learn from somebody who's kind of doing the thing that you want to do and love on the version of ourselves that's brought us to this moment.
so how did you go from, okay, I'm full-time podiatrist to now I'm full-time coach and it's well, you can tell us you can tell us all the things. I'm not going to ask the questions. You can tell us all the things that you're doing because I
I
know
like to
that you've done rituals and then I've just been in a workshop with you recently and yeah, so you tell us all the things.
I like to have a giggle that I was like I believe that I'm divinely guided. I believe we all are, right? There's something out there bigger than us that is helping us create in the magic of who we be. And I have a giggle because I feel like I was saving souls, SOLE, and actually part of it is actually reminding people of the unbound, like beautiful nature of who they are on a SOUL soul level. So I was like kind of close with podiatry. Just wasn't all the way there. But it really was the workshop I mentioned, Bridge. It really was in that room that I made a declaration that every mum, every woman, every mum gets to know that just because like things are normal, like being stressed out and overwhelmed is normal, doesn't mean you have to subscribe to that. Because what happened for me in that workshop was just this deep understanding that I'm not broken. Everybody feels the same way. And it's about going, oh, that's here because it's part of being human. And then let's just learn how to gain skills to grow our nervous system, to move differently in the world, and to identify with ourselves differently in the world. Because a lot of the time we're so big on beating ourselves up that it's important to understand that actually we're pretty amazing humans and we've made some pretty amazing choices, but we're geared from a nervous system level to look at all the things that are bad
Right.
and move away from them, which is why all of my work, because we have two types of motivation. We have our away from motivation, which is that, but we also have our toward motivation. So we run to something that really lights us up.
Right.
And we had needed, from an evolutionary standpoint, to be a run away from, when the tiger was chasing us, we better get out of there, right? We sense it, we got to get out of there. But we live in a day and age now with a level of safety available to us that we can actually be in the run towards and rewire our nervous system to learn through pleasure. Like when something feels really good, oh, I'm going to follow that. And then our life gets really juicy. I guarantee you, you're still going to have the same amount of stuff come up. But when you're breaking through, when you're getting the things you desire, when you're starting to live the life at the vibrational frequency that you want, that in itself is so confronting to our system.
Mm.
But we get to rewire to learn from that. Like what a fun thing to play with.
Right. And I think for some people, pleasure and desire, they're very similar but different. It's dangerous. It's dangerous
Yeah.
to them because it's like,
Yeah.
well, who am I to want this? Why should I want this thing? Do I deserve to
Yeah.
have this thing? Should I feel good? When or what, depending on the family you came from, looking at generations, it's like, well, she suffered and she suffered and she suffered. So who am I not to suffer? Or,
That.
there's so much
That.
conditioning that we
Yeah.
have that
Yeah.
even wanting something new feels dangerous, feels like that tiger is chasing us down.
It's and it's that's what I'm saying when I say it's going to be equally confronting because our nervous system knows a certain baseline. And when we've really never and if you think about like when we're talking about societal conditioning and being in desire, like there is so much put on us, especially as women, to act and be a certain way, and only that way is an acceptable way to be.
Mhm,
And we're talking about like, this isn't generations ago, like, it's still happening now. So, to desire something that is there's so much conditioning already against you, just to desire something, right? And then to go after it, there is so much there as well, because no matter which move you make, there's a judgment that can happen. And we're really good at doing that, right? Especially if we were raised in a family that used shame to coerce behavior or guilt to be like, hey, don't do that. We good girls don't do that. That sort of conditioning
mhm.
that it's really hard even just to have a desire in itself. Like I need to really say it because it's so important. There's so much against us in living a life of pleasure that really turns us on because it's like an act of rebellion in this day and age because we've been taught and it's in our system and it's exactly what you were talking about. Like we're used to a certain level of vibration. We have our DNA that's come through with us that had our grandparents and our grandmothers and our great grandmothers and their era was very oppressed. And so we're breaking out of that, but it's still here in our system. We know if we take DNA cells and we drive them to another place in the in the country and we elicit emotion here, it's going to have it changes the cells over there. So the DNA in our system is still very present, very active. And so it makes sense that it's so hard for us to even dream of our desires, but also to go after them.
Yeah.
Because if you went after your desires, you would have just been labeled selfish and a crazy woman,
Yes.
50 years ago. Not 150 years ago, 50 years ago, you know?
Yesterday, because when you stop
Yes.
because I don't know what the political climate is over there where you are, because 'cause you're in Australia, correct? Yes?
Yeah.
Over here, things are like batshit crazy, and a lot of things for women, instead of we're fighting for them to move forward, but there are factions of society that are trying to move things backwards.
Mhm.
So, yeah, dare to go after your desires and see what happens. Then it's almost like it's a it's not even an internal threat, depending on what you want.
There
It's
there's
actually
definitely external
external.
threats, yes.
And,
Yeah. It's
it can be really hard,
it is
whether
really
even
hard.
though we're outside of the bedroom. Because
Yeah.
I okay, so just a quick aside, because of course I have to go left every now and then. I was on a dating app and this guy matches with me. I was like, okay, well, let's see what's happening. And then but there was a thing there because he defamed women a little bit. I'm like, well, what a dating app. This is, anyway, I was like, all right, let me just give him the benefit of the doubt, because words don't mean the same thing to everybody else. So then he writes me this long dissertation about women and what he's been experiencing and how, just how he would like to go back to the times of um our grandmothers when they used to know how to treat a man and do for a man, and it's like, okay, are we just gonna roll with be a doormat for a man? And it's like all the things that he was like listing, and it's like things that made a man want to stay. I was like, dude, staying is a choice.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter what a woman does. If you want to stay, you'll stay. And she could be, you know, whoever and lead anyways. But for me, to me, he was like looking through these rose colored glasses, like everything was like so better back then. It's like, no, women just have agency now and you don't happen to like it.
Yeah.
So,
And I think it's so important that men just fully express early on exactly how they feel so that we can see if that aligns with our value. I love that he gave you that dissertation so that you could make your choices really clearly and easily and fast.
yes,
And so I am all for men expressing themselves fully in exactly what their beliefs are. I just want to put that on the table as somebody who's divorced and dating in their 40s. Like, it's a wild place out there. So and so the quicker they can let you know that, the better. Um,
exactly. Because for me, that line of thinking doesn't align with my values, you know?
that
Because I'm not
and
saying, I'm definitely not saying that you don't take care of your person. And, however that looks to you. But I am not really going to subscribe to it has to be this traditional way that has always been, and we're going to go back 50 years and do it that way. I subscribe to let's get two people together, see where their values align, and they get to decide what their relationship looks like without, bringing in all the baggage and the hurt and the this and the that and all the stuff.
yeah.
It's like we get to unpack and then we get to align.
Yep. And the fact is, we're always going to have relational wounding come back up once we get back into relationship. We can't heal our relationship wounding by ourselves. We can work in other dynamics, but we're going to see more of it once we get into an intimate relationship, right? So we can definitely do relational healing. And if you've been in a dynamic again and again and again, highly recommend you go and find somebody who can help you work through the nuances of it, but it's only gonna bear its head again when there's stress in an intimate relationship. And so, like, I think in this day and age, it is challenging, right? Because, um, women are getting to a point where we can express our desires freely, right? And more of us than ever. Not always, there's a lot of oppression still here, but we're more vocal, we're more able to be advocates for ourselves, we're a stand for what we believe in, and I think it's a phenomenal thing because for if I was a man and I'm out in the world, I can see quickly where my values are gonna land, but the majority of, what you're talking to is they just wanna bring us back to that place. Like, "Oh, we're just gonna go back to the it's easier if you're seen and not heard, and cook me some beautiful food in the kitchen," which
Yes.
when we're in a beautiful divine union and we are pouring into each other because we know that everything outside of ourselves is a reflection of what we are within. When we pour into our partner, we pour love in and we receive that love back. It would look would look almost like a traditional relationship, but it's mutual.
Exactly.
And it's a battery effect where I pour in and I receive at the same time, and I receive and that allows you to pour in, like, it's such a different dynamic than what we had before where m men just did whatever they wanted and women just accepted that because
Yes.
they had to, because society said that's the way it went. And what I love is that your values allow you to be expressive and free and your pleasure, your enjoyment really matters.
Yes. That part, it really does. And
Yeah.
and I'm talking now, okay, we're all adults here, right? So, I'm talking about external pleasure, internal pleasure, but I'm also talking about the pleasure that we can give to ourselves without having to
Yeah.
wait for somebody else to provide it.
That. And this is my life's work, Sophia, because I believe that as women, well, I believe we're all giant walking, talking electromagnets and we're frequencies. So all of our cells, all of our atoms in our cells are held together by electromagnetic force. They're spinning around. So I'm a frequency, you're a frequency, and we are all used to living at a certain level of frequency. And so my life's work is all about how do we as women come home to ourselves, come home to the juiciness of who we are and become beautiful, radiant magnets for the life that we want to live, for our desires. And we can look at all the things externally and be like, oh, we need this, this, and this to be okay before we do it. But we're actually in charge of our turn on. we're in charge of our energy. You can think right now, like have a moment right now and close your eyes and just think about a moment that really lit you up and made you happy. Like maybe it's your wedding day, or maybe it's the eyes of one of your children, or maybe it's like this moment you got the perfect present when you're a kid, or your mum just giving you a cuddle. Like go into that moment and feel how you've shifted your body already to be in that energy. And we're so in control. We're not, and we are, right? We're in control of how we're feeling. And so the work that I do is about we are so used to a certain level of frequency, and that suffering frequency has been here our whole lives, right? And so our nervous system believes that that is safe, because nervous system safety is often um it's often not what we believe safety to be up in our brain. It's just it's like certainty. Like, if I know how something's gonna feel, I'm gonna feel safe in that. And so
Is
when we start to get our desires, right, in a world where we've just suffered along and we've done all the things, and, like, there's a level of chaos that lives in my life that I feel like once I find complete peace, it's gonna be like, my nervous system is going to really struggle with that. Um, but we're so used to this frequency, and that feels safe. And so the work that I do is about getting women to come home and unhooking from all the things that are outside that they think make them safe, and find that safety within themselves, because once you find the safety in yourself, then you can move to pleasure.
Mhm. And so what is, if you could tell the audience like one way that they could feel safe within themselves, that would be amazing, because I know I've been at a lot of different workshops where um we're talking about relationships and all these things, and when the coach says, "Oh, put in the chat what you're looking for," a lot of women say safety. And so it's almost like you're looking for safety in someone else. So how do you find safety in yourself?
It's really about coming home and loving yourself fully and knowing who you are. And not knowing who you are, but being in the discovery of who you are. Because when you can trust yourself, you can find safety everywhere. And so it's learning what one of the biggest parts for me is learning your intuition as a woman, coming home to that. Because when you know that you can trust that when something feels off, you can follow that. When you know, like exactly what you said with the man, like you had a thing where you're like, I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. You already knew. Your goddess, your body, your divine vessel already knew he was not aligned.
Yeah.
And your divine innate body, she knows more than our brain does. Our brain is great at information, but she knows. And so the biggest thing is coming home to know your own body and to create a beautiful relationship with it. Because when we know our own body and we create a beautiful relationship, we don't have to be getting it right, but as long as we're in communication with it, that then we unhook from everything externally being safe. Because when we know ourselves, we know we can meet any moment, because we have, you're an amazing woman. You've done some big things in your life. You've met every moment in your life and become better because of it. Your life is the thriving life that it is because of all of your choices. And so it's coming to that place of knowing yourself and unhooking from external safety, because that's the thing. When we're looking for it externally, then we're never going to find it, because then our if anything in the external world changes, our sense of safety is rocked.
Mhm.
And so when we find safety within ourselves, within our knowing, within our bodies, then everything shifts, because no matter what situation you get in, you're going to know what to do, or you're
Well,
going to know how to find information on that. Yeah.
it does sound a lot like what you're saying is kind of in a nutshell that self-safety equals self-trust. And to get to self-trust, you have to start to listen to your internal wisdom.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's for me, my world is very spiritual. I feel like I'm very connected to my ancestors. I'm very connected to God. We have conversations regularly, and it's beautiful. And there's also just really beautiful science around interoception, so the felt sense within our body. And there's now coming out lots of research around how our body knows. Our body often knows before our brain, and it's out, and then we talk ourselves into things. And
Mhm.
then later on, we find out our body did actually know, and we look back and go, "Oh yeah, I was right." Like your example is the perfect one, and I've had plenty of them. Um, but it's also like once we're in touch with our internal world and we trust ourselves, we don't have to always get it right. We know that it's okay if we get it wrong because we know that we can correct. We've done it so many times, we've repaired so many times.
Mhm.
But once we have so our body has a system that's way more advanced when talking to another human than our brain is, because it's already picked it up before we're even interpreting the signals.
Yeah.
And so the deeper the connection we have with our own nervous system and allowing our nervous system to be there, the faster we pick things up and the more we'll trust ourselves.
And it's kind of like a cycle. Because then the more you trust yourself, the safer you feel. And the safer you feel, the more you trust yourself. And then the more you trust yourself, the better decisions you start to make.
Mhm.
Because you know, like you're saying, even if it's not the best decision, it's still the right decision in the moment based on what your internal wisdom is giving you.
Yeah. And there's a in beautiful caveat for it because once once we have that level of trust and safety, there's a level of surrender that can come online for our life to flow. And life gets a lot easier. There's a lot less chaos. There's a lot, it's even though there's external chaos happening, how you feel on the inside, you just ride the waves of what's here. If an emotion comes up, you feel it, but it doesn't have to stick around forever because you've just ridden the wave and you allow it to be. And it's a different way of being. I have a gorgeous girlfriend, and she's also got 4 kids and a solo mum, and she's like, "Rochelle, when's your life gonna calm down?" Because every time she calls, I'm like, "Oh, the fire brigade was here, and my child just had a ankle injury, so we've been to the hospital," and, like, she's like, "When's it gonna calm down?" I said, "I think the problem is you think it will." And I know that once you have 5 kids, there's always something, right? And I run my own business, and I work for a multi-million dollar business. Like, there's there's going to be a level of chaos that if somebody was dropped into my life, they'd probably self-combust. But for me, the capacity is so big because of the way that I've worked my nervous system that it doesn't feel stressful for me. And that's the big part is like once we get to that place where we grow our capacity and our potency and our ability to meet everything, then pleasure is so available to us. Even when something big happens that feels dramatic, I literally have gratitude when I have grief here, I'm in a grief gratitude portal.
Tell us a little bit more about your grief gratitude portal.
Yeah, I think I had a miscarriage at the beginning of this year, and that has been such a beautiful portal for me, and I think it's such an interesting thing as women because I had an entire identity shift into doing mum again. Like, my youngest is 11. I wasn't expecting to go back to dependent children. So I had an entire identity shift, and then I had a miscarriage, and so it was like, um being with the grief of all of that, and also seeing that this little being needed to complete something from a soul level, and it chose me, and I get to be in so much gratitude that I got to be the one that held it for 10 weeks, like, just enough for it to complete whatever mission it needed to complete to
Oh.
be done with this level. And so there's the part of myself that sees with so much gratitude, and then there's the human that also hurts. And so it's being able to be with both.
I am really sorry for your loss because I know that's difficult. And I really congratulate you on the fact that you were able to find gratitude in there. And I love the way you put it. You got to be the vessel to hold that little person so that
Yeah.
they could complete their mission.
Yeah.
That's
It's such
beautiful.
an honor. It's such an honor, and it's also there's a lot of feelings that come with it, which is also beautiful. And I think, that's one of the biggest parts is, like, it's easy to find our pleasure in joy and um, in fun and play and all of those things, and I think all of those are very important, but also the true mastery is when we can find the bliss, I'm not gonna say pleasure, but the bliss in being able to feel grief. Like, grief is, is loss, right? Grief is your heart saying there was a deep love here. And it's
Yes.
just showing you that that was a deep love there. And so it's understanding that as the more we go into the safety of who we are and then filling our life with pleasure, we're going to ride there's still going to be waves. You know, a lot of us want to just live in this high, like just love and light place, which is it's unattainable. And then we actually usually beat ourselves up because we're in the unattainable where we think that this is how we should be all the time.
Right.
And so it's also yeah, it's also being able to find pleasure in everything that we are rather than just, the good, in inverted commas, emotions.
Right.
Um,
It's almost like when you look at social media and you think that this one person, whoever that person is for you, has the most amazing life. It's like, oh my God, they're always doing this, they're always doing that, they're always, but then you stop and you forget that, okay, maybe their life is that freaking amazing. But at the same time, maybe they're just giving you the highlight reel and they're
yeah,
not
of
telling you
course.
all the times when life is shit or they're suffering or they
Yep.
couldn't do X, Y, and Z or something fell through that they were hoping for. They don't tell you that part,
Yeah.
and nor do they really need to, because
Yeah.
these days, I mean, a lot of people are living their lives almost completely online. And if you have a business, then you are opening yourself up to live a good deal of your life online for your brand and so that people get to know you and all those lovely things. But I think sometimes we do forget, though. This is probably a highlight reel.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
it's not the high that we're all looking for that a lot of people are aspiring to and then beating themselves up when they're not there.
Yeah.
But one of the things that you said that I really wanted to kind of come back to was you said I had to switch my identity into starting over as a mom again. And I think
Mhm.
as women especially, and I talk to a lot of single women, you've come to a place in life, especially you hit 40 and then life doesn't go downhill after 40. Life can be just so freaking
It's
amazing.
just starting.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, it's almost like it's
Just
just start.
ramping up.
Um, but that's what a lot of women start to reevaluate. And one of the questions you have to ask sort of is, who am I? As you said, get to know yourself, but who are you stepping into? Because the life that you want to have, if you're not currently living it, you have to step into a new identity. And sometimes these identity switches can just like roll up on you. And other times they're very, very intentional. So yours kind of
Yeah.
rolled up on you.
Mhm. It did. Definitely.
But other times it's very intentional because when you ask yourself, it's like, okay, well, future me who's living the life that I'm aspiring to, what's she doing? Let me ask her. What's she do
Yep.
to get there? And
Mm.
start talking to her and then stepping into that identity. Because one of the things I do talk about is slaying the good girl and good girl syndrome, which is some of the stuff we talked about, which is people pleasing and control. And because you talked about surrender, but how do you surrender if you're holding on so tight because you always want to be in control?
Mhm.
So, it, to me, you have to really let go of that control, spoken from, I would have to say, a recovering control freak, and allow that surrender. And it's easier said than done because if you spent all this time trying to hold on to everything and control everything and make sure everything's right and just be perfect and, all the things, then surrender's a challenge.
Surrender feels like an exorcism, and most people don't talk about that, and I think it's really important to talk about because when surrender means the cost of dropping into our juicy feminine and our radiance and our magnetism and just living a life that's so in flow and also like really alive is our emotional body. So every time we surrender, we feel safe enough and we surrender, there is going to be emotions that you held in the tightly controlled part of who you are that get to be released. And it's so beautiful and it can feel like an exorcism. It can feel quite intense when we're allowing ourselves to come down. And I think it's really important to talk about that because women often get to this point where they're like, I'm just crying all the time. Like there's so much happening. Like there's a whole lot of feelings coming up. And that's
Mhm.
actually a really good sign of where you're at. And especially when you feel safe enough so once your nervous system feels safe enough, it's also going to bring up things from the past to be felt and to be moved through. And so the problem is then, we often go back into our pattern of going, "Oh no, this is here. I've already worked through this. Like how terrible." Like, but it's a normal part of the system that we're going to bring that back up. And the way that you deal with it this time around will be different than how you did it last time around. And that's your growth.
Right.
That's how much you've changed. But often we'll go, "Oh, this is here again. I'm back to that place," which isn't true. We've adapted and we've become more consciously aware and we're in a place that was safe enough to bring the rest of that feeling to the surface. And the work that I do is all about getting us into a place of learning and doing all of the work that is this work, right? So that we have the shadow work that we do, which is really important to look at ourselves, look at our psyche, learn who we are, kind of thing. And we're going to find ourselves equally as much running towards pleasure. Because what's happening when we run towards pleasure is that as we start to receive the things we want and our vibration gets higher, it's like, whoa, it's exciting. I'm getting the things that I'm really wanted. I'm being the woman. Like I've got the speaking gig lined up. I've got the course created. Like I've got, the holiday that I've always wanted to go on. I've got a most amazing man, whatever that was the desire. What happens is when we're starting to receive that and so our life is bigger and we're living at a higher vibration and it's juicy and it's beautiful, is that when we start to do that, our body's like, unsafe, unsafe. And so we will start to stress or we'll create in a moment that will actually bring us back down. Usually we'll self beat up or we will usually have a really one that we go to quite quickly, like stressing about finances or stressing about, your children or your relationship or whatever. We have something that brings us down really quickly and our brain goes straight to it because our nervous system is like unsafe. Like I'm not used to living at this level of elation. I'm not used to getting the things I want, and so your nervous system will kick in and we sabotage the things, like, we sabotage it. Have you ever been in a relationship where like, "This is amazing," and so then you start poking him? It's a really normal part of the feminine, by the way. We the feminine won't surrender, so there's so much I hear around women going, "Oh, well, he wasn't safe enough." But you're ascribing too much power to the other person. What happens is when a woman surrenders and the masculine will naturally draw forth their holding and providership. And so, but a woman isn't stupid, right? We're not, we're going to poke, we're going to do a little storm because we need to know you're holding us before we're going to surrender more. So,
Right.
men, if you're listening, if you're getting poked and your woman is like, it's because she wants to surrender to you. And we've just made it mean so many other things. And so we'll poke a little bit, we'll check, and then we'll surrender more. And then in that surrender, there's more safety in our system, and then more things will come up. It's like a natural cycle of contraction and release.
And
And
and I have to say, sometimes it's really good to poke the bear because when you poke the bear, you see how the bear reacts. And that's information. And I think one of the things that we forget is that when things happen, It's information.
That
So instead of creating a story around it, about who you are, about who the other person is, just you're data collecting, you're data mining. And so you get all this information. And then you ask yourself, how does this information relate to me? And what does it mean for me? Like, so when you're talking about surrender, it's like, okay, well, I've noticed this reaction with that small poke, so can that person hold me? Does that
Mhm.
person have the capacity? Because that's something else that we talked about is capacity. And we have to grow our capacity to continue to hold things. So if you have a vase and it's a very small one, like it's a bud vase, and then you get a dozen roses, not just a bud, but you get a dozen, that one vase doesn't have the capacity to hold a dozen. So now you have to go find a bigger one.
Yeah.
And is that horrible? No, because you just got more roses. So,
That.
so you got something
And
that
now
was
your dozen roses is your baseline. That's your normal, right? So that's now your normal. So you won't accept anything but a dozen roses moving on out, right? So that's it's such a big part. And um I think one of the things that is really just so important is we can build capacity through pleasure. We don't have to look at all the things that we've held and go into the past, and if the past comes up, yes, that's important. But I think one of the biggest things I see in the personal development industry is that often we dig and we dig and we dig. And so we spend a lot of time in that pain place, and it's beautiful and it is necessary, but also you're going to meet yourself just as much running towards the greatest life you can possibly create.
so you did a post a couple of days ago on orgasm. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I really do because I have a course called Orgasm, and it's spelled AWEGASM because living in awe is one of the biggest things we can do. But also learning ourselves through pleasure is one of the funnest and also biggest things we can do. And so I did a post about if you're a wham bam, thank you ma'am in your bedroom, or you haven't self-pleasured in a really long time, or when you do, it's like 3 minutes, done, pack everything away, done, then we need to talk, right? Because women, we have this amazing ability of being able to orgasm again and again and again and be in an energy that is so beautiful. And the reason why orgasm is a beautiful part of the work that I do is because it gives us a lot of telling you where you are. So if you're a wham bam, thank you, ma'am, and you squeeze everything to be able to get to that place, then you are getting there, right? You're getting there, which is beautiful. Like, keep doing that, but what I'm inviting you into is also, that when we're in that place to just get to that thing, it's a very, like, masculine, way of orgasming, like ejaculation orgasm, like, "What? Do it. Get there. Done." Is
Yeah.
how we've kind of that's all we talk about, like, that's all we know really from I don't know, it took me a long time before I learned about the fact that women have an ability to create a beautiful orgasmic field and stay in that place, and there'll be highs and lows in that, but we can stay in there for hours if we want to. And it requires us to, one, get presence to our body, but also that self-love that gets to happen, that, like, romancing ourselves, right? Like, if I wanna leave you with something, go today and spend a whole day flirting with your damn self. Like, put beautiful smells in your body wash and, like, adorn your skin the way that you want to, and imagine that you're being watched and, like, flirt with yourself, flirt with the energy that's here or the whole day, and then make love to yourself in a place where you've created enough space, you have time, you create a little cocoon, like, put candles on, like, literally romance yourself like you would want somebody else to. Because that's the biggest thing. We're constantly looking for our thing needs to be met out there. And we get to do them for ourselves so that we're so, in love with our life, we're so in love with our body, with our knowing, with our truth, that if somebody doesn't align with that, we're not going to allow that in.
Mm. So here's one thing I want to bring up because orgasm is amazing. But once you're working with women over 40 into 50, 55 and up, we're looking at perimenopause into menopause. And sometimes orgasm isn't as easy in those points of life.
Mhm.
And so it obviously I don't want anybody to ever judge themselves because they can't get there. Because like you
Yeah.
said, we've been taught that it's the destination that counts, not the journey.
The masculine version. Yeah,
Yeah. So even if you're in one of those stages and maybe you don't orgasm like you used to, but you can still have the pleasure journey.
that. So all of the practices that we do in a course, it's not about a destination of getting to orgasm. It's about experiencing pleasure in the moment. Because so often we're like, "Oh, we need to get to this thing." And that's why I talk about the difference between masculine and feminine orgasm. Feminine orgasm doesn't have a destination. The destination isn't orgasm. You might not get there. And that's beautiful because what it's about is being so present to the pleasure that is here right now.
Mhm.
And often that level of presence will lead to that place, but it's not about that because there's no destination. It's just about experiencing the pleasure, the feeling, your body in that moment and being attuned to yourself because that attunement is such a powerful thing. And it's also being in the field of bringing that energy to you. Whether you get to an orgasm place or not is actually irrelevant. It's about being so turned on by yourself,
Mhm.
and that ricochets through your entire life.
And I just wanted to address the elephant in the room in case some women were thinking about that, because again, that's kind of how you've been taught, right? And especially depending on who you've been with, if they aren't body savvy and don't choose to learn your body,
That
then
piece, yeah.
then they sound like a kid in on a road trip. Are you there yet? Are you there yet? Are you there yet?
Which is the least the which is, some people might really enjoy that, whereas, for me, that would be a big, like, "Oh, now we're way further back than we were." Exactly. And and here's the real truth as well, like, often we as women were not taught that our pleasure was important.
Right.
Especially if you're a people pleaser. Like, I am great in bed because I'm a people pleaser, and I was a people pleaser for so long, I'm gonna make sure that you feel amazing, right? And it took me a long time to be able to relax into myself and receive, because even when I was receiving, I was like, "Okay, what is he thinking?" Like, da da da, like, it was in my head. And it's
Right.
so normal. Like, we have so much conditioning of it. And there'll be women listening who have never even had an orgasm. And I just want to, like, say, of course, like, with everything that's been tied into our lives and it being so shamed, women's pleasure, like, there is still practices happening in this day and age where women are barbarically remove their clitoris because they shouldn't feel pleasure. So
Right.
this is still happening in this day and age, and so we get to understand that it makes sense that we are where we are. And there's also so much available to us, and especially when you're in a community of women who all have different levels and different ways of being and have all the different things that are here. Because a lot of us were shamed out. A lot of us were shamed around our sexuality. There's a lot of things that are constantly conditioned to us as women.
Right. Or
And
even
so,
like with
yeah,
little kids, you catch them masturbating and it's like, oh, they do that, and then so now there's
yeah,
a shame, I
yeah.
touched and
And
I told that was wrong.
And
So,
most people's mums weren't open enough to be able to have a conversation around it either. And so you learnt from other people who had no idea. Like, you learn from your friends about stuff. They might mention it, they might not. You might have never had a conversation. Like, you might
Mhm.
not have even been aware that there is other types of orgasm and the feminine orgasm is totally different. I was in my 30s when I found that out. So there's also the fact that it's so, like, hush hush and behind closed doors. Like, "Oh, we don't talk about that, we don't do that out here, we go over here," which is
Well,
important to teach our
great people
children.
don't talk about that. Good girls don't know about that.
Yeah, yeah, and so then the problem is the majority of people get their information around pleasure and sexuality from porn. And the problem with that is it's not feminine focused pleasure generally in that industry, and it's not about learning your partner and becoming a sacred union. It's something totally different. And I think that's really an important piece because um we can have orgasm, and the work in orgasm isn't just about this piece. It is a big part of it. It's also about how do you bring that energy of, like, fully tapped in and aliveness into everything in your life. Like, one of our exercises we do is called choregasms, where we find an everyday chore and we make it as juicy and fun as possible. Right? We bring as much pleasure as possible to it because we can do it in the big moments, and but we can also bring that energy of being so present to ourselves, so in tune, and so much pleasure into everything that we do. And it's crazy that we've never been taught that. Like, it's crazy that we're like, "Okay, no, just do the thing." Like, I don't your listeners won't see, but I drink out of a beautiful crystal wine glass because I'm like, "Why not?
Exactly.
Why wouldn't I do that for myself?"
Well, I think, my choregasm is going to have to be doing the dishes because I feel like I'm washing dishes constantly, and dishwashing was never something that I enjoyed. But every time I
Yeah.
turn around, it's like, "Okay, I gotta wash dishes again." So, yeah, maybe that's gonna be my choregasm.
Right, and so here's the thing, this is the fun. So you get to have a think about what things can I add to this to make it a beautiful experience. So for me, making my washing dishes a orgasm was like having beautiful smelling um stuff so my senses were alive, right? I love the feeling of water on my hands, right? I know it gets monotonous when you scrubbing, but I love that. Or sometimes I actually like putting gloves on. It depends on the music I have. If it's like a burlesque music, I'll be like snap and like have my gloves, and it's a whole glove exchange experience. But it depends on what I'm feeling, and I love adding music because then I dance around as I'm doing it. And so then it becomes, instead of this like, "Oh my god, I'm gonna do the dishes again," it's like, "Oh, I get to play." Like, "Oh, this is gonna be fun. Like, what am I gonna play with this time?" Rather than it being the mundane and the boring, like, "How much juice can I get out of this?" Because 'Cause I'm gonna be doing the dishes no matter what, right? The
Right.
dishes are gonna get done, but how do I wanna do them? Who do I wanna be? What part of myself do I want to explore whilst I'm washing the dishes? Like, how does my regal goddess kind of wash the dishes? And then how does my, like, fun, playful one wash the dishes? Like, which part of myself do I want to explore in that?
I love that. So if people wanna find you and, see some of your stuff or they wanna work with you, how can they do that?
The best way to find me is on Instagram. So my Instagram handle is Rachelle Luv Raku. So, um, and I would love to hear from you. I'm a real life person. I love talking to other real life people. I'm sure Sophia is the same. If something like lands, reach out to us because we're real life people who love community. Like, I love seeing myself in humanity, and I love humanity. I know there's some crazy things happening in the world, and there's a part of me that is like, who am I to have this much pleasure when there's really some really bad things happening for women on the other side of the planet? But it's also my job because I have this privilege to go there so that it lifts up the consciousness for them as well. And so, um, I reach out. I would love to chat, and it would be beautiful to experience you if something lands for you in this. Like, let me know. It would be lovely.
Well, that is perfect. So you guys, I met Rochelle, I don't know, several years ago in a program that I was in, actually with Preston Smiles as well. And I haven't done bridge. I will probably do bridge at some point in time. Just it's never aligned. But that is maybe something else you can talk to her about if that
Yeah.
resonates with you. And yeah, just reach out to her because she's great. So
Yay.
it has been
Thank you
such
so much for having me.
You're welcome. I'll talk to you soon.